top view, and I'm going to spread this out. So I'm going to move this over here. So we know we want the total distance to be roughly about 16 inches and a half wide. I'm going to click on this. We're going to drag this. Probably have to bring another one of these in. We're going to bring it down close just so we can see everything kind of line up. I'm going to go up here. Let me deactivate that. And I'm going to bring this down. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm left clicking on these arrows and moving this back and forth. So I'm just holding down the left button on the mouse and I'm selecting the arrow. So right now we're just working in X and Y because we're in top view. If we're in isometric view, just like before, we would see X, Y, and Z. And you'd see rotation on all of these. So I could rotate this part. I don't want to do that right now because it'll complicate things. Let's go ahead and assemble. Let's go over here and we'll do slider so that it actually slides in. And that's the whole reason we created these tubes and the dimensions of the connectors so that these would fit together. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to go slider, mate, left click on that, and it's going to give us limits. But first, let's tell it what we want it to connect to. So I selected the inner circle there for a mate connector. I'm going to select the inner circle of that. These two go together. I'm going to hit the play button just to see how these fit on. Okay, I don't want it to go that far, so I'm going to set limits. And let's say our maximum, let's set it at 1.5 inches. And now let's play that and see how that fits. All right, so that stops it. So it'll only go so far. So I'm going to go to top view. We're going to do the other one, so let's close this one out. We've got that one set. So just so that we don't get confused between these parts, I'm going to select this one and then that one. So we'll do slider mate. Select the inner part of that circle with a left click. I'm going to select this one with a left click. Those two merge together. Let's set our limits. Let's make sure it's going to go on right. Yeah. All right. And let's set that at 1.5 inches. Left click to close that out on the check mark. And let's look at these. All right, that looks good. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just moving that in. See how it stops? It'll only go 1.5 inches. I'm going to do the same thing for this one. And then that should move that part once they get to their limit. All right, so that's the maximum limit. And that's about how far we're going to insert that. All right, great. We've got those together. Let's go to front view. And we're actually going to need another one of those parts. So I'm going to move these two out of the way for right now. Let's select this 7.5 inch side tube. So it's going to be inserted there. And we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. Now I can do this manually by just left clicking and dragging it over. Or if I have trouble, I can just type in 90 degrees. That works too. So I'm going to left click on this arrow. I'm going to drag this down and kind of get it into position. And I'm going to set the same limits on this one, and so that these line up perfectly. Let me move this one in. All right. So that looks good. So I'm going to deselect that, and now we'll set the slider mate again. So we're going to go to slider mate. We're going to select this one first so that it doesn't move this part. We're going to select that circle by left clicking as well. Those two have merged. We're going to hit play, and notice how that one slides past. All right, good. So we're going to set the limits on that to 1.5. Good. So we've got that one together. We need another one of these. Let's just insert. Let's go insert so we can get some practice. We're looking for the 7.5. So now you can see why I named the different parts, not just to keep it organized in the part studio, but to keep it organized on assembly. And they'll be, when we pull this screen up, they'll be organized in the order we create those. So we're going to left click here. So we need to place this close to where we want it to be assembled. I'm going to left click again to release it. I'm going to go up and I'm going to close that out. So we're in top view. Let's go into top view so we only have XY coordinates, so it'll be easy. And we're going to rotate that 90 degrees. All right, good. And we'll bring that up by left clicking on the arrow. I'm just going to pull that back. We're going to do the same process we did before, but I'm going to go to isometric view. There we go. And you can see from top view that looked like it was oriented correctly, like it was aligned. So that's why you have to kind of look in different views. Like if we went to front view, we would notice that those two aren't aligned. Not that we have to get it perfectly aligned, because we're using these mate connections that will align it in the direction that we need. But if you're just trying to match these up without using a mate connector, you need to look in different views to make sure everything is lined up. So I left clicked again on the white screen to deselect everything. I'm going to go up here, left click on the slider mate. I want to select this one first so that it slides to that connector. I'm going to select the inner portion of that. Those two connect. I'm going to hit play to make sure it goes in the direction I want. Yes. And then I'm going to set limits. All right, now let's look at this and make sure everything's lined up. That this is actually inserted in. So notice how it moved again. We got to do the same thing to the other side. We want to make sure that they're fitting in so we have the distance right. This is going to be close to 10 inches this direction. It'll be close to 16, 16 and a half going this way when we get these assembled. And we'll measure the distance here in just a second. All right, good. So now we have those all lined up and connected. And let's look at it from left view. No, that's going to kind of be in the way. We're going to select that so that we can rotate it up 90 degrees. There we are. I'm just going to type in 90. Now we can drag this up and get it into place. I'm going to go to that back view. And now we'll do an isometric view of that. So I'm right clicking and holding it down to rotate. We're going to go to slider view again. We're going to select this one first. I'm going to scroll around, right click and hold down. Left click. Those two are mated together. I want to play that. All right, good. Now we need to set our limits. Let's set our limits here for 2 inches. We're going to add 2 inches to that so that it'll be tall enough. Center wheel, holding it down. I'm dragging this up so that I can look at that. I'm going to click on this part and I'm going to drive that down. And you notice how you can see the end of the tube. And that's about 1.5 inches. So I think that's what I'm going to set that to, is 1.5 inches depth. Let's go back to that slider and open that back up. Left click, open that up, and let's go 1.5 inches. That's one change we're going to make. So when we press down, this should move. I'm going to click on this and press it down. So you notice how now that's moving everything together. We've reached the 1.5 inches depth. Since we're losing 1.5 inches here, we actually need this to be 29 inches instead of 27.5. So let's right click on this part and we're going to switch to Part Studio. That's going to take us in We're going to go back to the drawing for this. So you notice when I highlight the part that I want to change, it shows us all the parts associated with it. Now it doesn't necessarily show us the sketch, but since we labeled the sketch, now we know which one to use. So we're going to change this from 27. We're going to change this sketch, this line. Let me scroll out, so I want you to be able to see the change. Notice here the difference. We're going to go to that line tool. Now, because we moved it from center, the line is still here, but it will change the length. We're going to double click on that sketch, and we're going to go to where it was originally oriented, and we're going to left click and change that to 29. Hit enter, and you notice how it changed in length. We close that out, and this one has also changed in length. To change the name on this so we know what we're dealing with. So that's going to be a 29-inch tube. When we go back into assembly, it will have changed the length of the tube that we're working with. Go to insert, and I go to that 29-inch tube. There it is. I'm going to place it down where I need it. Go to left view. I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees by left clicking and holding. Now I'm going to left click on the arrow, move this over. Left click on the other arrow and move it up. But you'll notice when it's in there, we imported this one, but that tells us that this one was automatically adjusted. Right? If we put it in the same location opposite to it, they're the same size. What I'm doing is to see if one extends out over the other, and they don't. We can actually go test this out and make sure everything fits together. And this is going to help us get the angles for this back quad connection. We'll start the next video from this point.